Hydration. All right, we're going to talk about heat tips. It is hot right now in Chicago. We have a heat index for this weekend hitting over 90 degrees potentially. So I want to talk a little bit about heat training tips and what you can do to train in the heat. So number one, typically for every 10 degrees above room temperature, so 68 or let's say 70 degrees, you should drop your intensity one full training zone. So if it's 80 degrees, no zone 5 work, because zone 5 work becomes zone 4, zone 4 becomes zone 3, zone 3 becomes zone 2. So you're dropping, ideally aiming to drop your heart rate at least 5 to 10%, because what that will do is to help keep your core body temperature a little bit lower. That is the way to combat and still be able to train in the heat. That means though, if it's 20 degrees above room temperature, so 90 degrees or so, we really can't afford to be running in zone 4. We got to run down in almost zone 2. And if it's over 100 degrees, then guess what? We don't train. So the general rule of thumb we use is if the heat index is over 100 degrees, we cancel workouts. If you still want to work out, just don't do it outdoors. Do it indoors. Go on running on a treadmill or do a different workout or go for a swim in the lake. It's still good to get heat adapted by being in those hotter environments. You just don't want to train at higher intensities. The other thing we do anytime that heat index gets up over 90 degrees is we cut the training volume basically in half. So if you had a 10-mile run, you're just going to do a 5-mile run. If you had a 20-mile run, you're going to do a 10-mile run. And that's just to make sure you're not exposing yourself to too extreme conditions for too long. The dehydration risk gets too high. There's a lot of other reasons, but those are generally our kind of group training rules of thumb, but what I would recommend for anyone training individually as well. If you're using one of our more advanced, especially the AI adaptive training plan tools like TriDot and RunDot, the tool itself would actually auto-calibrate the workouts and reprogram the workouts for you based on the heat, the humidity, all the environmental conditions, altitude if you're traveling. So just follow that. It will tell you how to adjust your paces properly and do all the math for you. I also have a few calculators on my website, the ones that I find that I like. So 4starendurance.com/calculator. You can find different pace calculators and things like that, that you can also use just individually if you want to do the manual approach to everything. So a couple other things too, for those who might be racing in the heat, especially this weekend. We've got some people doing Ironman 70.3 Rockford. It's going to be very, very hot. We're going to have the heat index over 90 degrees. So what can you do to combat that? One, make sure you're prehydrating well. Sweat rates will sometimes double, so you might have to double your hydration intake. So if you're stopping at aid stations, instead of grabbing 1 cup of water, you're grabbing 2 or 3. At bike aid stations, for those doing triathlon, you might double the amount you need per hour. So if you're doing any brick training as a triathlete, make sure you're not just training with 1 water bottle. You've got at least 2 on your bike frame. Also prehydrating, so making sure before the workout, the day before, and the hour before the workout, you're getting more hydration in. Generally what I recommend is before your run, in the 1 hour before the run. So if you're waking up about an hour before and running within an hour, try to get a full water bottle with electrolytes consumed before the run starts. Just make sure you're not starting your run dehydrated, right? That's going to compound everything. You already need to hydrate more. You don't want to start at a big deficit. You can also do a little bit of sodium loading, preloading. There's a lot of hyperhydration products out there now, like Gatorade has their Gator Lights, Body Armor has their IV, Body Armor IV product. There's a lot of different products out there now that have over 1 gram up to 2 grams of electrolytes, 2,000 milligrams in one drink. That's a big way to preload. Generally though, in the heat, what we aim for is at least 1 gram, 1,000 milligrams per liter. And generally, you can just say that's about per hour under normal-ish conditions. So if it's hotter, you might actually double that. Yeah, you might take more than 1 gram of electrolytes per hour. But that can be not just sodium, but all the electrolytes: calcium, magnesium, potassium, chloride. The 5 major electrolytes you see, especially if you look at products, don't use regular Gatorade. Look for Gatorade Endurance Formula, for example, because that has more potassium, more sodium, more chloride, more calcium, magnesium. So you'll get all the major electrolytes in those more endurance-focused products. So always look, does it have all of those 5 electrolytes in the product that you're consuming? If not, bring supplements. Salt stick chews, I like those. They're kind of like candy. It's like eating sweet tarts. You get some extra electrolytes from that, and it absorbs pretty quickly in your mouth. So think about ways that you can get more sodium in, especially if you're increasing your hydration, right? If you're drinking more water because you feel hot, don't dilute your blood sodium, right? If you just drink water, you're actually diluting everything. You want to maintain fluid balance. So make sure you're getting the electrolytes in. All right, so that's hydration. That's shortening the workouts if you need to. That's lowering the intensity to deal with the heat. And the other thing are practical things that you can do. If you're training, train at a different time of day. Train earlier or train later when it's cooler. Look at the weather forecasts. If you're out running on the lakefront, look for places that have more shade rather than more sun. If you're racing, look for the shady side of the street. You know, any opportunity to stay in the shade can help you dramatically. So being smart about where you train can make a big difference. Other little hacks, some of us have gear now, like technical workout gear that have ice pockets, like on the back of the neck. There's a little ice pocket in the back of my triathlon jersey. Put some ice back down there. Get it down your spine to cool down the blood and everything circulating through your body a little more efficiently. If you're stopping at a water fountain or an aid station, pour water on your skin where your veins are closest to the surface of your skin on your forearm. Pour water on there. I will generally wear arm cooling sleeves to protect me from the sun, like UV protection, but also to pour water on so I can cool and keep myself wet at all times. I will also use an arm cooling sleeve to pour ice down the arm cooling sleeve and hold ice on the surface of my skin. So that's another little hack to keep yourself cooler. Another biohack actually is just focusing on your breathing. Breathe more, right? The more oxygen you get in, the more your body will metabolize fat as a fuel source. And if you're getting more oxygen in, you're effectively cooling yourself down. You're getting more energy. And when we get hot, one issue that compounds everything is if you fatigue because of the heat and you're not getting enough oxygen in, so your breathing starts getting shallower, that becomes a downward spiral. So make sure you focus on breathing. At some races and events, if I'm spectating, you'll see me hold a sign or yelling out at you, just breathe, right? Breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth, circulate more oxygen through your system, and that's going to help keep you cooler. So those are just a few tips. Think about implementing those both in training and in racing, using little hacks to keep yourself cool. You know, there's other gadgets out there as well. If you haven't ever done a sweat test, I highly recommend that. With our pacers, any of our Team Danae's athletes, especially if you're doing our marathon training program, I use about 4 or 5 different sweat sensors, and I'll usually have them if you ever want to borrow one. H-Drop is one that I like. Nix is one. Absolute Sweat. There's a whole bunch of different brands out there of different biosensors now that can calculate your sweat rate for you. So those are worth looking into. Some people also use the HeatSink headbands with the little funny looking blocks on the hat or the headband. Those help keep you cooler. You pour water on it and it acts as a heat sink. The other major thing, the final tip, make sure above all you're wearing sunscreen. It should go without saying, but sometimes you'll forget. Protect yourself in the days before. So you're protecting your skin before your training, not just during training as well. So that your body is not in a stressed state or an inflamed state because again, that's just going to compound everything, right? So anyhow, use all those tips. I'll see you out there, and good luck in your training and racing, gang.